Right now, on rooftops from California to Berlin to Mumbai, the world is racing to capture sunlight, and almost every single panel doing it traces back to one country. In 2024, China produced 96.6% of the world's solar wafers, 93% of its polysilicon, 86% of every finished panel on Earth. Not most of them, almost all of them. The sun may be free, but the machine that turns it into electricity is built, overwhelmingly, in one place. This is the story of how China came to own the sun. Let's start with the numbers, because they are almost hard to believe. A solar panel is not one product. It is a chain of 4 steps. First, sand becomes ultra-pure polysilicon. Then polysilicon is grown into crystal ingots and sliced into paper-thin wafers. Wafers become cells that actually catch the light, and cells are wired together into the finished module on your roof. Here is China's share of each of those 4 steps in 2024. Polysilicon, 93.2%. Wafers, 96.6%. Cells, 92.3%. Finished modules, 86.4%. There is no other industry on the planet this concentrated. Not oil, not semiconductors, not even rare earths. And it is getting tighter, not looser. The International Energy Agency found that when you look only at the new factories currently under construction, China's share of polysilicon, ingots and wafers is heading toward almost 95%. To put the scale in perspective, the world's total capacity to make solar modules jumped from about 1.1 terawatts a year in 2023 to 1.5 terawatts in 2024. A terawatt is a trillion watts. That single year of growth was driven, almost entirely, by China. So when world leaders talk about a clean energy future powered by the sun, what they are really describing is a future that, for now, runs through Chinese factories. Every gigawatt of solar the world installs is a gigawatt that, somewhere along the line, was almost certainly made in China. So how did one country end up making nearly all of the world's solar panels? The answer is not luck, and it is not one clever invention. It is 2 decades of relentless scale, cheap power, and the willingness to lose money. It begins with polysilicon, the raw material, making it is brutally energy hungry. You have to heat silicon to extreme temperatures, and that takes enormous amounts of cheap, constant electricity. China had exactly that, in one place, the far western region of Xinjiang, sitting on some of the cheapest coal power in the world, now produces around 40% of the entire planet's polysilicon. Cheap energy at one end of the chain made everything downstream cheaper too. Then came scale. Chinese manufacturers did not build factories. They built factory complexes, each one bigger than the last, backed by local government land, loans, and subsidies. As output exploded, prices fell off a cliff. Look at polysilicon. In February 2023, it sold for about $32.70 a kilogram. By May 2024, it had collapsed to $4.40. That is a fall of nearly 90% in roughly a year. Finished panel prices followed the same path. Module prices were cut in half during 2023, then fell another 25% in 2024, until panels were selling for as little as 7 cents a watt. 7 cents. At those prices, no factory outside China could survive. American and European makers, paying more for power and labor, simply could not compete with a product being sold for less than it cost to make. China did not just win the solar race. It made the race itself almost impossible for anyone else to enter. But here is the twist almost nobody outside the industry sees. China's total dominance has come at a staggering cost. Even to China itself. When everyone builds at once, you get a glut. By 2024, the world had enough solar factory capacity to produce more than twice the number of panels the world actually installed that year. Twice. That is not a healthy market. That is a flood. And a flood of supply crushes prices for everyone, including the very companies that built it. The result was a bloodbath. China's 4 largest solar manufacturers, the giants of the industry, posted combined losses of $1.5 billion. Names that dominate global shipments saw their revenues fall hard. Jinko Solar's revenue dropped almost 33% year-on-year. JA Solar fell 36%. Longi, one of the biggest names in the entire industry, fell almost 15%. These are not small startups failing. These are the world champions of solar. Bleeding cash, because they outbuilt not just their rivals, but global demand itself. This is the paradox at the heart of China's solar empire. The same machine that gave the world impossibly cheap clean energy also turned the industry into a money-losing race to the bottom. Beijing had created an industry too big to be profitable, and too important to let fail. For buyers in India, Europe, the Middle East and Africa, it meant the cheapest solar panels in human history. For the manufacturers making them, it meant a war of attrition with no clear winner. Now think about what this concentration actually means for the rest of the world. The IEA put it in a single, startling statistic. 1 out of every 7 solar panels produced anywhere on Earth comes from a single factory. Not a single country, a single factory. And in 2023, China accounted for around 95% of all the new manufacturing facilities built across the entire solar supply chain. That is a level of dependence that makes policymakers in Washington, Brussels and New Delhi deeply nervous. Because a supply chain this concentrated is also a choke point, a trade war, a natural disaster, an export restriction, or a problem at a handful of plants in one region could ripple through the world's entire energy transition overnight. So the West has tried to fight back. The United States slapped heavy tariffs on Chinese panels and offered huge subsidies to build factories at home. Europe has talked about strategic autonomy. India launched a major incentive scheme to grow its own manufacturing. And yet, the numbers have barely moved. China's grip on every stage of the chain still sits between 80 and 90%. And projections suggest it will hold that grip through 2030. Why? Because you cannot subsidize your way past a 20-year head start. A 40% share of the raw material. And panels selling for 7 cents a watt. A factory in Texas or Tamil Nadu has to compete with the cheapest, most experienced, most vertically integrated solar industry ever built. Building a panel is easy. Building an entire supply chain, from sand to module, at a price no one else can match, is what China actually owns. And that is the part the rest of the world has found almost impossible to copy. So where does this go next? In 2025, 2 things happened at once. The first is that despite all the losses and all the tariffs, China's exports did not slow down. They accelerated. China's solar cell exports grew by 73% in 2025. Flooding into India, the Middle East, and Africa, where cheap panels are powering a genuine energy revolution. The second is that Beijing finally started trying to stop the bleeding. Regulators pushed the industry to cut production, encouraged the weakest players to consolidate or shut down, and in a major move, cancelled the 13% tax rebate that exporters had relied on for years. The effect was immediate. After years of falling, solar prices were forecast to rise by around 9% in the final quarter of 2025. The first real increase in a long time. For the world, this is a turning point worth watching closely. Slightly higher prices may finally give manufacturers outside China a sliver of breathing room. But make no mistake about the bigger picture. The clean energy transition, the single most important industrial project of this century, is being built on a foundation made almost entirely in China. Cheap Chinese panels are decarbonizing the planet faster than anyone predicted even 5 years ago. That is, in many ways, a gift to the world. But it is also a dependency. The country that controls the sun controls the pace at which the rest of us can escape fossil fuels. And for now, that country is one, and one only. If you found this useful, subscribe to Asia by the numbers for a new data story every day.